Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Vinita, and let us start with the 3 days online training program on disaster risk reduction and resilience. This program is being done in collaboration with the School of Environment and Sustainable Development, Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar. Today is the first day of the 3 days online training program on disaster risk reduction and resilience. We will be having two sessions. One is the inaugural session that will be followed by the technical session. In the technical session, we are having three lectures today. The first lecture will be taken by Dr. Abhishek Chakrabarti. He's a scientist, engineer, SG, and head ecosystem and modeling division from RSA NRSC Hyderabad. The second lecture will be taken by Professor Dhruv Sen Singh. He's from the Geology Department of University of Lucknow. And last but not the least, the third lecture will be taken by Dr. Harjeet Kaur. She's a junior consultant from NIDM. So let us start with the inaugural session first. Um, I would like to inform that I'm Vinita. I'm a young professional at National Institute of Disaster Management. Today we have gathered here to discuss the topic that I have already mentioned. The webinar is being held. The 3 days online training program is being held under the guidance and support of Executive Director NIDM and Head GMR Division. Um, Historically, we have seen that dealing with disasters focused on emergency response, but towards the end of the 20th century, it was increasingly recognized that disasters are not natural, even if the associated hazard is, and that it is only by reducing and managing conditions of hazard, exposure, and vulnerability that we can prevent losses and alleviate the impact of disasters. Since we cannot reduce the severity of natural hazards, the main opportunity for reducing risk lies in reducing vulnerability and exposure. Reducing these two components of risk requires identifying and reducing the underlying drivers of risk, which are particularly related to poor economic and urban development choices and practice, degradation of the environment, poverty, and inequality and climate change, which create and exacerbate conditions of hazard, exposure, and vulnerability. Addressing these underlying risk drivers will reduce disaster risk, lessen the impacts of climate change, and consequently maintain the sustainability of development. So let us start with the inaugural session first. I would like to invite Professor R.Y. Hiranmai, who is the Dean of the School of Environment and Sustainable Development, for the introductory remark. Um, he is a professor and dean at School of Environment and Sustainable Development, Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar, India. After obtaining PhD in Life Sciences from Avinashalingam University for Women, Coimbatore, she has been working as a quality control in pharmaceutical industry and then started career as assistant professor at Karpagam University, Coimbatore, followed by teaching and research at School of Nature Resource Management and Environmental Sciences, Haramaya University, Ethiopia, and back to India as assistant professor at Avinashalingam University for Women, Coimbatore. During her career, she has visited numerous countries for attending and presenting research papers at conferences and congress. During her career, she is actively involved in research through guidance, projects, and presentations and publications in field of bioremediation through vermin technology and organic farming to improve soil and crop quality. She has been giving more emphasis to the research related to soil quality, solid waste management through bioconversion, and organic farming. Sustainable practices of waste management and organic farming for soil fertility and crop production is a thrust area for research. She has served the administrative responsibility of presiding officer, ICC Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar, Gujarat in India. She has also been actively involved in NSS, EVSB, and academic and extracurricular activities of the university. Not only that, she has also recognized many national conferences, symposia, and international conferences, workshops, and webinars. I would like to invite Hiranbai, ma'am, for the inaugural and introductory remarks.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. So,
Yes,
a warm good morning to all those who are present in this event of inaugural session. So, here we have initially she has given all those briefs about what we are going to do in these 3 days and how we will be managing these events. So disasters, we always, when we hear, we put it into a negative terminology. But when we look upon to the traditions or the changes that have occurred across the globe or across the universe, it was always through some changes, that the drastic changes that we have gone through. So first of all, my pleasant morning greetings to all those dignitaries present here. Honorable Vice Chancellor of Central University of Gujarat, Professor Ramashankar Dubey, sir. So pranam to you, sir. Then Dr. Himangu Shekhar, sir, Professor Surya Prakash, Dr. Reena Kumari, Assistant Professor, Abhishek Chakravarti, and all those who are attending this event. So coming to the introductory to this event, we have given the factor that there is the climate change and the natural as well as the anthropogenic disasters that we are going through in the present era at a larger scale. And this is bringing about a need for an awareness and a strategy that could tackle these to manage the disasters. So here we can say these increasing impacts from these disasters or the climate hazards, these have prompted the international efforts. These efforts to promote the development of national disaster risk reduction and resilience. So when we talk in terms of resilience and risk reduction, we may need a compiled approach from all the sectors. So different sectors are working together when there is a disaster, from the common people to the trained people and also the technocrats and the defense. All these work together when there is a disaster. So I think this event also concisely brings all these platforms together. And also we know that all those expertise, those who are giving the lectures, they are also from different varying fields. Those who involve the NIDM first and foremost, then from the agro ecosystem, groundwater technology, water resource management, and of course we are there, the School of Environment and Sustainable Development. So all these are put together to bring about the best output that we can give to the society. So increasing awareness is required to reduce the disasters. It's not only the natural disasters, but the anthropogenic disasters. Every day newspapers, we come across different disasters that occurred in different industries and how it's affecting the environment as well as the human being and also the resources. So the natural disasters or the anthropogenic disasters, how the root causes of these are there and how we can manage them very well. This is one part. And another part we can say the National Disaster Response Force. That's an Indian specialized force that is constituted specifically for this purpose. When there is a threatening disaster situation, they are the people who reaches to the venue, or we can say the places, and help to rescue people. So this is a moment when we should remember them also. They have the motto, Aapda Seva Sadaiva Sarvatra. That itself indicates the sustained disaster response service. So these NDRF and our organizations, all of us together bring about a best output that we can go through and manage, first of all, whenever disaster occurs, and the other part that how we can reduce this. So all these aspects will be discussed, I think, in this 3 days online training program and give knowledge to the younger generation, the participants who have joined from various organizations and our students, also those who have joined. And we will all together bring some best output for the future. That's our motive about this constitution. So here, all the fellow citizens, we can say, here it's not the students, teachers, officials, but all the human beings together, we need to put together so that, because when we are disturbing the nature, there is a response that's coming to us. So how we can sustainably live in harmony with nature, avoid the risks or disasters, and live peacefully. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a wonderful introductory remark given by you. Now I would like to invite Professor Suryaprakash sir, who is head of the GMR division from NIDM, for the keynote address. Sir is presently working as professor and head in Geometeorological Risk Management Division and also head of the CBR in Industrial and Cyber Disaster Risk Reduction Division, team leader for World Center of Excellence on Landslides Disaster Reduction, and faculty in charge of 8 specialized centers at NIDM. Sir has also organized more than 300 national and international trainings, webinars, and workshops and conferences related to different aspects of disaster management. He has been a member of the core group task forces and working groups for development of national guidelines and strategies on disaster management. He has been a recipient of UGC's National Merit Scholarship and CSIR fellowships during his studies. He obtained doctoral degree PhD from IIT Roorkee and did his specialization trainings on climate and geohazards risk management from University of Geneva, Switzerland. Not only that, he is also the member of editorial board for several journals and members of several professional societies at national and international levels. He is also presently working as the editor of the Journal on Disaster and Development. I would like to invite Professor Suryaprakash sir for the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Vinita. Good morning and welcome to all the dignitaries of the inaugural program, the distinguished speakers, delegates, and the participants. My warm respects to Professor Ramashankar Dubeji, Vice Chancellor, Central University of Gujarat. A welcome and him on behalf of National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, for joining with us in this inaugural program. And thanks to Professor Hiran Mai Yadav, Dean, Central University of Gujarat, who just spoke before me. Am I audible, Vinita ji? Okay. So I would like to first of all thank Executive Director Shri Taj Hassan ji, IPS officer, who is currently heading the institute, has provided us the permission and motivation as well as guidance to conduct this joint collaborative program. Let me briefly state that these efforts which we are initiating now are not new. It was in fact initiated way back in 1990. In fact, on 22nd December 1989, when the United Nations General Assembly discussed about the issues related to development and growth of developing nations, and it must that because of disasters, they are not able to reap the benefits of their growth and development despite hard efforts. At that time, the United Nations, in fact, launched an international decade for natural disaster reduction from 1st of January 1990 to 31st December 1999. Lot of efforts took place at the global level, which included the Yokohama Framework for Safer World, Yokohama Strategy, came out in May 1994. The first World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, held by Government of Japan and United Nations, along with other member countries, followed by the Second World Conference that was held at Hyogo in Japan, and which came out with Hyogo Framework of Action on Disaster Risk Reduction and Resilience, and it provided a framework for about 10 years from 2005 to 15, and subsequently in 2015 from 14th to 18th of March at Sendai in Japan, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction and Resilience was declared with the involvement of more than 168 countries who at that time, and this was followed up for from the period 2015 to 2030. On the other hand, in the education sector, there were also some steps which were taken up and observations made by the second Administrative Reforms Commission way back in 2005, when they found out that there is no specific subject on disaster management in the education sector. And the need was felt that there should be inclusion of a disaster management as a subject at all levels of education in every stream of education. So therefore, the NCRT, CBSE, state education boards, as well as the UGC and AICT took up the initiatives. And I remember way back in 2009, when the AICT constituted a committee, and fortunately I was part of it, and we developed a course curriculum for all streams of engineering education and a subject on disaster management. And subsequently, in the year 2010, the UGC also came out with a course curriculum on disaster management for all streams of education in, say, commerce, science, or other subject areas, arts, as well as vocational courses. So this is how the developments had taken place. But later on, in 2015, we had, in fact, three major agreements that we had at international level. One was, I told you, SFDRR, which took place from 14th to 18th of March 2015, followed by the 17th Sustainable Development Goals, which were decided during September 2015, and then in December 2015, we had the COP21 Paris Climate Agreement. And all these actually culminated and were considered together during the first post-Sunday Asia Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction by our Honorable Prime Minister in terms of 10-point agenda on disaster risk reduction, which is termed as Prime Minister's 10-point agenda, and in which the Honorable Prime Minister also considered education sector as one of the important areas, and he emphasized as one of the points for networking of universities and institutions working on disaster management. And NIDM, being mandated by the Disaster Management Act 2005, took up the initiative and established inter-university institutional network on disaster risk reduction at the along with the Universities Association, and more than hundreds of universities, they have already joined this network. I'm also very happy to share this, that many of the universities, they have now started courses in disaster management, either MA, MBA, or MSc. And now they are also including disaster management as a subject in almost every stream of education. So this is worth to note that Central University of Gujarat also took this initiative to hold this 3 days online training program jointly with NIDM, and hopefully this will also help initiate the new courses in disaster management at the university. The second thing I would like to tell is that the NIDM also developed course curriculums at the central level for considerations by the universities. So now from all streams and at the central level, both the AICT, UGC, as well as the ICMR, they have all course curriculums on disaster management, and they are also working on development of modules and materials on disaster management. So besides this, in order to enhance the human capacities, NIDM had come out with online courses along with the Global Forum on Disaster Risk Reduction and Recovery, World Bank, as well as we had our own self-study programs, which any participant can attend free of cost at any time, at any place. That flexibility is available. So a lot of efforts have been made. And during the COVID-19, it was well realized by most of the people, the importance of the DM Act and its provision, along with the national plans and the policies. The national policy was released way back in 2009 on 22nd October. And the act was really notified on 23rd December 2005. And the national plan on disaster management, it came up in first time in 2016 and revised in 2019 according to Sundai framework. So at the national level, we are all And also the Act had provided the provisions of the institutional mechanisms with the National Disaster Authority, which was constituted in fact way back in May 2005 and notified on 27th September 2006 as per the mandate under the Act. And also the state disaster management authorities. These authorities are chaired by none other than the highest powerful person in terms of NDMA being chaired by Honorable Prime Minister, and the SDMA is being chaired by the Honorable Chief Ministers in the state, and in the UTs it is the Lieutenant Governor. So we have now the system in place and also the funding mechanism. The Act had also provided the mechanism for National Disaster Response Fund as well as National Disaster Mitigation Fund. And the 15th Finance Commission had also given adequate funds, almost around 1,20,000 crores of rupee from 2021 to 2026 has been allocated for disaster management from the central level. And also there are other provisions in terms of CSR funds and other activities. Similarly, in response to the disaster situation, we have the National Disaster Response Force, and also in the states, the state level disaster response forces. So all these are in place, and we are also working on documentation and preparation of the modules. And we will be very happy if the universities can join hands with us in developing such materials, because till date, it's not yet complete, and lot of efforts had to go in to have a quality standard materials of practical use to the students as well as the functionaries and the practitioners in the various sectors. As Madam Hiran May said, it is a cross-sectoral transdisciplinary approach at multi-levels which is required, and which need to be implemented, and collaboration, coordination and connectivity are key to this. And we have the incident response system as our command and control communication systems, which we are following in the country. So a lot of things have been established through the various guidelines which have been issued by our National Disaster Management Authority, and also the various training programs for the capacity enhancement of the human resources on hazard-specific, functional, and multi-stakeholder and multi-hazard perspectives. So now we want to bring a culture of risk assessment, prevention, mitigation, preparedness, and efficient response. And this would only be possible by the education sector, through the education sector. And the SFDRR amongst the 7 targets actually focused on not only the health sector, but also the education sector, and consider it as one of the critical infrastructure. And for that purpose, even a few years back, the UN has also established, along with the Government of India, a coalition for disaster resilient infrastructure. And such initiatives are continuing, and these endeavors are being made by jointly all the stakeholders. We have to act as a team. Team means together each achieve more, and we have to sustain these efforts. As Vivekanand ji has said, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is achieved. And we have a long way to our destination for the goal of our national policy in terms of zero casualty, disaster-free, and resilient nation. So many milestones to be achieved. As some poet has said, that woods are thick, dark, and deep, and I have to go miles before I sleep. And we must continue these efforts and sustain these efforts so that we remain safe, healthier, and can lead a good quality life on an equitable, justifiable, right-based manner with good fraternity amongst all of us. Before I close, I would have the humble duty to communicate my heartfelt thanks to all the distinguished speakers, including Professor G. Bhaskaran from University of Madras, various experts from different national institutes as well as universities have joined with us. Dr. Abhishek Chakravarti from NRIC, Professor Dhruv Sen Singh from University of Lucknow, Dr. Kakoli Banerjee from Central University of Odisha, and Dr. Himanshu Shekhar Mandal from National Center on Seismology, Dr. Reena Kumari, Dr. A.L. Haldar, Dr. Harjeet Kaur, Ms. Vinita Harrier, Ajit and Mr. Gautam, who have all put in their efforts to make this program successful. So I also thank all the participants for joining with us on this occasion, and would request them to continue this for the next 2 more days. This is 3 days online training program. And also I would urge them to do ask questions, not just being led only by the presentations of the speakers, but they should ask to acquire knowledge what they need to know. So therefore, it should be a bilateral, interactive, and discussion-oriented program. With these words, I thank you for this opportunity and wish you all the best for the program. Back to you, Ms. Vanita.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the keynote address. Now, I would like to invite Professor Rama Shankar Dubey. He is Honorable Vice Chancellor from Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar, for the special address. Sir has served as the Vice Chancellor prior to it in Tilka Manjhi Bhagalpur University from 2014 to 2017 in Bihar, and has also been the Vice Chancellor in Guru Ghasidas University, Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh from 2008 to 2009. He has served as the professor of biochemistry at BHU for 20 years. He possesses an excellent academic record with MSc degree in biochemistry from Banaras Hindu University in 1976, standing first in order of merit, and PhD degree in biochemistry from Banaras Hindu University in 1980. He has over 43 years of experience of research and 36 years of experience of teaching. He has served as head of the Department of Biochemistry at BHU for 4 terms for more than 9 years. Not only that, Sir has also published 157 scientific article book chapters in peer-reviewed journals or books with more than 12,500 citations with H index 46 and ITED index 100. He is also the recipient of several national and international awards in plant biochemistry and biotechnology, which include BHU Medal in 1976, ISCA Young Scientist Award in Agricultural Sciences in 1982, Swedish Institute Fellowship in 1989, Japan Society for Promotion of Science Fellowships in 1998, 2005, INSA German Academy of Science Exchange Program nominations in 1997. Sir has also worked in several reputed laboratories abroad in countries like Sweden, Denmark, Japan, Germany, and has given many invited talks and chaired scientific sessions in national and international conferences in India and abroad. It is noteworthy to know that Sir is also among the top 2% scientist list. Now, I would like to invite Sir for the special address. Over to you, Sir.
Thank you. In this training program from Central University of Gujarat, from the School of Environment and Sustainable Development, the Dean, Professor Hiranmay, Professor Surprakashji from NIDM, and the other dignitaries, Dr. Abhishek Chakrabarti, Dr. Himansu Sekhar Mandal, Dr. Reena Kumari from School of Environment and Sustainable Development, Central University of Gujarat, and all other learned speakers and all viewers. It is a great opportunity today for me to share my views with you. As we have heard just now from the previous speakers related to disaster risk reduction and resilience, in common terms, whenever there is an event which leads to loss of the property or loss of human life, then we call it as a disaster. It may be natural disaster or it may be man-made disaster. And all the countries, depending on their capacities, they are working for disaster risk reduction, and so as the India. As the previous speakers have pointed out, that India has been the signatory in Paris Agreement, and India is also taking efforts to meet the sustainable development goals. So it becomes essential, whether either due to climatic change conditions to face the global warming conditions, or in other ways, the various types of disasters we are encountering. So we have to take the challenges and we have to make our infrastructure. We have to make resilience conditions so that risk reduction is minimized. And we know that India is among the world's most disaster-prone countries. And most of its states, almost 27 out of 29 states and 7 union territories, they are exposed to recurrent natural hazards such as cyclones, earthquakes, landslides, floods, and drought. And climate change and environmental degradation have further compounded the frequency and intensity of disasters, along with increasing the vulnerability of our key assets like the people. In addition, almost 1/3 of the country is also affected by civil strife. And these hazards continue, that maybe the anthropogenic hazards like chemical, biological, and nuclear threats, these are also concerned. But due to the global warming during the recent years, in the recent decade, rather, we have witnessed more frequency of cyclones, floods, and even drought. And if you can see the number-wise, the number of climate-related disasters such as floods, storms, has almost doubled in the last 20 years as we compare to the previous 20 years. In the year 2020, the worldwide there was 26% more storms than the annual average, and 23% more floods than the annual average. And as population grows, the number of people at risk of disasters continue to increase due to urbanization and more resource pressures. So we have to provide aid for disaster risk reduction. And as it has been pointed out, that Govt of India that came out with Disaster Management Act, and many of the points have been taken care. Just recently, we witnessed that COVID-19 pandemic. This was also a type of disaster which could claim many lives, not only in India, but across the world. And it is very essential that we are witnessing the problems of global warming. As our Prime Minister a few days ago mentioned that we have signed Paris Agreement, and we have promised that by 2070, India will become a carbon neutral country. We know very well that the carbon emission is an important problem which leads to global warming, and it needs to be checked. The 100% zero emission is impossible, but carbon neutrality is possible. That we have to invest in science and technology so that we can have an environment where we are lesser prone to these types of climatic disasters that we have to look into. And that is only possible with investment in science and technology. So apart from that, there are certain other disasters like drought. Frequently, India is facing the problem of drought. We know that more than 60% of our cultivable land is either upland or water scarcity is there in the land, which leads to the continuous problem of drought. So under these conditions, we have to grow drought-tolerant varieties. So there also we have to expand in science and technology so that we get such type of land, infrastructure where that such type of varieties can be grown. And similar the condition is a flood. Last year, a year before last, we could witness that in many parts of the country in India, we are suffering from drought, and at the same time, many parts of the country we are suffering from the flood. So we have to opt for those types of conditions to grow the variety in our agricultural land so that the productivity can be attained. Because this is a very essential part, that our population is growing day by day. And at the similar pace, agriculture productivity is not increasing, rather land is decreasing. So under such conditions, it is very essential that we have to create resilience infrastructure for agriculture and for our residential conditions, and all taking all together. So, and climate change, not only in India, but in many parts of the world, it is creating the problems like melting of the glaciers. It is important aspect which is leading to increase in sea level rise. That is also posing severe threat to those cities which are near seashore. So it has become essential for us to have such type of our buildings that the buildings would not be prone to these disaster hazards. For example, the cyclone. Cyclone is also an important component. We are number of cyclones which we are facing. The number is increasing year after year. So for that purpose also it is very essential that whenever our buildings, especially in the cities, when urban development, the question of urban development comes, so there should be coding, cyclone coding for the buildings so that the buildings are resistant to the cyclone. So more and more it is needed that we have to invest that how to reduce the disaster, risk of disaster. That is very, very important, because when disaster comes, we do not know what will be its intensity and how much lives it will claim. So it is very essential that from the very beginning itself, we should look into that. So that is seismic building codes, especially for our urban planning. It is very, very important. Of course, Government of India has the act, but we can see at the many places in the many cities that most of these regulations are not being followed, and which leads to, disaster-like situation when the cyclones or flood or these situations come. So we have certain priority issues like disaster information management system. And India, as the previous speaker pointed out, that India has already this information management system. We have the data management system, but it has to be more robust, because India is a very big country. It is the largest country of the world, area-wise and population-wise. We are second largest in the world, and with a lot of agroclimatic variations in our country. So this needs a robust disaster information management system that it can be predicted that whatever disaster is going to take place, it can be predicted, and so such situation should be there. That one more important issue is like water management system, I pointed out. That water, even if there is no disaster, but year after year, we can witness that water table is going down. So that creates a great concern for all of us, that we should invest more and more in the water management system, like water recycling system. Minimum water should be taken, minimum water should be given for land for the irrigation of plants. That we should have such type of plants which can take minimum water with maximum productivity. So that also has to be taken into account. And we have to see that many cities of the India who are exposed to flooding and due to sea level rise, that care should be taken for construction of building in those cities. So these are certain aspects which we have to look into, whether that is a cyclone or this is a flood-like situation, that is drought-like situation, and the other conditions we have to take into account from the very beginning. And as pointed out, the participation of various stakeholders is needed. Public awareness is more and more needed. For example, many flexi programs of the Government of India like Swachhta Abhiyan and other that are coming up to make us aware that when our environment will remain safe, when we will curb global warming, annually a sustainable development can be assured. So it is, in a true sense, it will be only possible with the participation of all of us, participation of all government agencies, NGOs, all stakeholders, and public at large. So it is very nice. I congratulate in School of Environment Sustainable Development and NIDM that they have come together for organizing this training program for all our viewers, all our students and stakeholders. So with these few words, I thank you, the organizers, once again for providing me the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the special address. Now we would like to move to the vote of thanks, which will be given by Dr. Reena Kamari. She is an assistant professor from CUG University, Gandhinagar. She's working as an assistant professor in School of Environment and Sustainable Development, Central University of Gujarat. She has completed a PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi in 2011. Her main area of research is isotope hydrology and microwave remote sensing. She has published 6 book chapters and 40 research articles in international journals. She has been awarded with DST Fast Track Scientist Young Scientist Program. She has also completed 4 research projects with various national and international funding agencies like DST, SERP, and SAC NASA collaboration, also known as the NISAR mission. I would like to invite Reena ma'am for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Vinita.
Welcome, ma'am.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, Central University of Gujarat, Honorable Director, NIDM, Deans of various schools, distinguished guests, resource person, participants of this training programs, my colleague at Central University of Gujarat, dear students. It is a matter of great privilege for me to extend a vote of thanks to all those who have contributed in one way or the other to organize this program. First of all, on behalf of School of Environment and Sustainable Development, Central University of Gujarat, I express my sincere thank and gratitude to NIDM New Delhi for inviting us to jointly organize this 3-day training program on disaster risk reduction and management. My heartfelt thanks to Professor Ramasankar Dubey, Vice Chancellor, Central University of Gujarat, for his constant guidance and encouragement. I also take this opportunity to thank our Registrar, Professor S.B. Patel, for providing all possible administrative support to orchestrate this program. I thank the university administration for extending cooperation in this regard. I would also like to put on record a note of appreciation for the ICT team of NIDM for providing the technical support. We are extremely thankful to the distinguished panel of the resource person for taking time out of their hectic schedule. We look forward to make this program a fruitful endeavor by utilizing their experience and expertise. I convey my sincere thanks to all the participants who have registered for this program. We hope that you gain the most out of this program. You gain the most out of this program. Thank you all once again, and we hope that this program would generate more awareness and preparedness related to the disaster management and risk reduction. Thank you all. Over to you, Vinita.
Thank you, Reena ma'am. Thank you for the vote of thanks. Now let us move to the technical session for the day 1. The first technical session will be given by Dr. Abhishek Chakrabarti. He's a scientist, engineer, SG, and head agro ecosystems and modeling division from RSA NRC Hyderabad. The topic that sir would be speaking about is on satellite-based assessment of agricultural drought, Indian perspective. He's also a senior scientist and head of the agro ecosystem and modeling division at NRSC, ISRO Hyderabad, India. He has done graduation in agriculture, BCKV, and completed his MSc PhD from Indian Agricultural Research Institute. He has 15 years of research experience in the application of geospatial technologies in agriculture and has been involved in several national projects funded by DST, ISRO, and central ministries. He has played a significant role in India's national agricultural drought monitoring and assessment system. He also proposed 2 new indices for early season drought assessment using passive microwave-based satellite data sets. He is responsible to establish a network of eddy covariance flux star system over different agro ecosystems across India to assess the ecosystem. He has also played a significant role in India's national agriculture. He is responsible to establish a network of eddy. He has he has developed India's first geoportal, Phenology over India and its causative parameters. He's also developed India's first geoportal called Bhuvan Jai Vurja to assess spatial distribution of biomass potential from crop residues over India to analyze site suitability of biofuel, biomass power plants. He's also the recipient of an ISSS Gold Medal for Best Doctoral Thesis and 4 Best Paper awards at conferences. He has published more than 35 research papers in respected peer-reviewed journals and conferences, as well as 50 scientific reports. He's also the life member of Indian Society of Remote Sensing and India Meteorological Society. I would like to invite Sir for the lecture. Over to you, sir. Abhishek, sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vinita.
Sir.
I think I have to first.
Yes, sir. I've given the share option to you, sir.
Coming.
Yes.
I have half an hour time, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Still, it is good morning only. So just a minute before 12 o'clock. Good morning to all participants, and my special thanks to the organizer. And good morning to our Honorable Vice Chancellor and other dignitaries and speakers. Without further delay, I will just like to go to the our presentation, which is on satellite-based assessment of agricultural drought and Indian perspective. And before going into the detail of this presentation, we need to first understand drought as a disaster. Just a minute, it is not moving. It's taking some time. Okay, so if you see the drought risk globally, actually, it has been reported by the World Resource Institute that almost every part of the globe is one or the other way is basically affected through drought, starting from the polar region to the tropical region. Of course, the intensity varies. So drought has a global reach. Every continent is affected. And drought is not only climate, it is basically climate plus. Climate is the causal parameter, of course, but there are other parameters which basically exaggerate the effect of the drought. Tropical and subtropical region, which our country actually is situated, are at the highest risk because the vagaries of nature, we are highly dependent on monsoon. So the vagaries of nature is much higher in this particular region of the globe. And it is also highly linked to the population density, livestock density, which we have, I think, one of the highest in the population and the livestock density. It is also dependent on the institutional structure. So it is not only climate or population and so on and so forth. If we have a very strong institutional structure, we can have some kind of a mitigation or drought proofing. So those countries which are not having a good governance or the institutional structures are more vulnerable to the drought. So the most important part, apart from other things, is the drought management. Here I would like to put some philosophical thing before we starting into this thing. So throughout our evolution, actually, if you see the first, the human beings were hunter and gatherer. So during that particular time, knowingly or unknowingly, we are basically a migratory in nature. Wherever there is a resources, we used to stay there and then we move on. So to some extent, we are having a drought-proof situation or drought-avoiding situations. From this hunter and gatherer, whenever our society become agricultural in nature, now it is of course agriculture plus industry in nature, we started basically settling down. So in this particular situations, it is our vicious cycle or it is a cyclical procedure of drought that drought cannot be totally negated. Of course, it can be avoided, it can be mitigated, it can be tackled. So one thing you should be always keep in mind, drought would be a recurring phenomena. The important part is how we monitor it, how we tackle it, how we avoid it, its impact actually. So another, this drought again is a very much ill-posed problem, or it is a very wicked problem in management terminology, because we don't have any definition of drought, particularly quantitative definition. It is very difficult to precisely or universally accept the definition of a drought due to its complex nature, varying characteristics that manifest across the different agroclimatic region of the world. But we can surely identify some of its characters. So drought is a temporary aberration which has a permanent feature, which is a permanent features in the climate. Unlike aridity or even seasonality of aridity, this is not a very well-defined dry season, and wet seasons are there. So drought is recurrent yet sporadic features in the climate, and it is also occur under all climatic regime. It is very difficult to characterize its spatial extent, intensity, and duration. So it appears primarily through, though not solely, due to the substantial rainfall deviation from one normal for different deviations of the rainfall, but exactly pinpointly you cannot say this is the onset of the drought. So sometimes it is called a very creepy kind of a disaster. So the onset, its prevalence, and when it is basically decided, it pinpointly you cannot identify that particular thing. So these are the difficulties in handling the drought, and these are some of the characteristics of drought which are not basically found in any other natural disasters. So what is the problem? No universal accepted definition. Difficult to determine the beginning and end of the drought episode. Drought could spill over months. Suppose it is ended, but its effect can spill over even months and years. Means last year drought can affect this year crop or any other resources also. So there is no universal indicator or index to be precisely forecast the advent, severity, nor you can project the possible impact. The spatial extent tends to be far greater. Suppose you have assessed a drought impact, but actually it may have an imperceptible effect on a place which is far away from the place of occurrence of the drought. The impacts are generally non-structural. This is very important. This is non-structural in nature and difficult to quantify. Suppose the damage to ecology. There is a disturbance in the ecosystem or the biodiversity, disruption of the socio-economic fabrics of a community. These are all non-structural in nature. That is very difficult to quantify. The impact also tends to get manifested in the event of successive drought. So drought in a 5-year may not affect that much, but successive 2 drought years may basically affect havoc. So these are the kind of a wicked nature of the drought. So whatsoever may be the case, it is a very typical hydrological cycle, and where the drought basically stands in this hydrological cycle, we can discuss. Basically, we know that in hydrology, basically there is a circular motion of the water. It is going coming down from the cloud, and then it is getting infiltrated or percolated to the groundwater or surface runoff. We have a surface storage, and ultimately it is recharging the soil moisture. This soil moisture is basically transpired by the plant, and they gain out of it this photosynthesis processes, the biophysical parameters. They have a biomass, they give us the food and all these things, and we of course we can also sense all these changes of vegetation over a land through satellite or any other sensors. Now, when there is a drought, basically deviation from normal, as far as the rainfall or in some of cases surface flow is deviated from the normal, we call it basically the meteorological drought. If the surface water bodies are basically getting dried off, there is a lack of water for irrigation and drinking, we call it a hydrological drought. And when it is basically affecting the crop, particularly, it is basically the agricultural drought. So this drought, actually, what has already been mentioned by our Honorable Vice Chancellor, that nearly 60% of our area of India is rain-fed. And here we have a problem. we have a recurring problem of the drought over this particular rain-fed area. So all these kind of droughts can be monitored by the different procedures, but here our focus is mainly the agricultural drought. So if we discuss the climatic variability, it is in terms of precipitation deficiency, in terms of amount, intensity, or timing. And also drought can also occur because of the high temperature, high wind speed, low relative humidity, and greater sunshine hour or less cloud cover. Basically, it is having the desiccating effect of the environment. Because of this deviation in the precipitation, we have a reduced rain infiltration, runoff, deep percolation, and recharge. And because of this temperature and wind, other things, we have an increased evaporation or transpiration rate. Both actually lead to deficiency in the soil water. These actually has a cascading effect of the plant water stress, reduced biomass and yield, and of course the reduced stream flow, inflow, reservoir level, lakes and ponds, and so on and so forth. These actually lead to this economic impact, social impact, and environmental impact. And this is the type of the temporal direction of this. It is a cascading effect of all this, and time basically runs across these things. So whenever we have these issues of climatic variability, we call it meteorological drought. We have a problem of soil moisture or plant water stress, we call it agricultural drought. And for the stream flow, we call it a hydrological drought. And ultimately, the amalgamation of all these things is the socioeconomic drought of all. There are many other terminologies, but these are the principal terminologies basically dealing with drought. So as I was telling, it is a cyclical in nature. We cannot avoid it. So basically it starts with a protection and recovery. In case of protection, we need a preparedness. And if it is occurred, we need a mitigation of it. Further, we need have prediction or early warning for further preparation. And in case of disasters, we need to have the impact assessment, response, recovery, and reconstruction. So this is a typical crisis management and risk management. This is going on cyclically since we have basically have this agrarian society and all. So if we see the different approaches for drought management, one is the preparedness or prevention, which include monitoring of the drought, early warning, drought vulnerability, risk mapping, drought-prone area delineation, water harvesting and conservation, afforestation, community participation, so on and so forth. For mitigation, we have the judicious use of the surface water, groundwater, cloud seeding, micro irrigation, crop insurance, public distribution system. These are the basically different steps of mitigation. As far as the relief is concerned, of course, the crisis management plan, institutional structure, and drought contingency plan for at district level for implementation, for providing seed, for a nutrient bank, support to the farmer, agricultural input subsidy, relief of employment, and so on and so forth. So these are the basically three basket where we can basically manage the drought. So another type of classification is the short-term management. Another is the long-term management. For short-term management, it is reactive in nature, in season. That is more of a relief centering, monitoring and assessment, prediction and early warning, crop planning advisories, and so on and so forth. So, and for long-term, it is more of a mitigation-oriented, drought-proofing or drought avoiding. We have to build up the institutional framework or the collaboration, as was discussed previously. Capacity building, ground infrastructure, and community participation is very, very important over there. It has got all these challenges and opportunities for this. So as far as the central agencies are involved for drought monitoring and management in India, of course, Ministry of Agriculture is spearheading for this. They are the overall coordinator of this. They have this interministerial crop weather watch group, and they actually spearhead all these things. And along with that, participatory departments are Indian Meteorological Department for weather forecasting, rainfall data, and all the weather data. Central Water Commission is there for monitoring the storage situation of the major reservoir. And of course, in Indian Space Research Organization, along with Mahalanobis National Crop Forecasting Center, that is also under this Ministry of Agriculture. They gave the space-based technology for monitoring of the drought. ICAR, that is Indian Council of Agricultural Research, particularly CRIDA, are giving the contingency plan, along with other ministry like Ministry of Land Resources, Water Resources. They are also involved. And of course, National Institute of Disaster Management is there for capacity building and other participatory role to it. So let me go into the detail of the National Agricultural Drought Assessment and Monitoring System, which has been going on since decades, and it is one of the successful program that has the technology transfer, and not only the technology transfer, it has got institutionalization. So it started in 1988. The concept of NIDM actually first nucleated in National Remote Sensing Agency, and we developed a methodology. At that time, at 1988, there are very few satellite data. We started with NOAA, that is basically a foreign satellite. From then, 1989 onwards, we have an operational service using NOAA HRR, and also we have the district level assessment, its prevalent intensity and persistent of this agricultural drought. In 1998, actually, we launched this IRS series satellite AWIPS, which become, it is not AWIPS, WIPS only. So based on that, basically, we started giving ingested the Indian data for this particular program. In 2002, that was again a landmark. We got MODIS data. There are many channels, there are many products for this, and since now also this is working, and they are giving this agricultural monitoring and drought assessment. Started with MODIS in 2002 onwards. 2004, of course, AWIPS came, that is advanced WIPS, and we could able to give sub-district level. Previously, it was a district level. We could able to give sub-district level assessment of the drought. 2009, of course, we introduced new approaches for showing period drought assessment, early season drought assessment, different value-added products and all. So after almost more than a decade or maybe 2 decades, it has finally been institutionalized. A new institute came up under Ministry of Agriculture. The technology has matured for monitoring of the drought. 2012 onwards, this project has been successfully institutionalized under Ministry of Govt of India. National Crop Forecasting Center actually presently is doing this operational activity. Right now, we are basically supporting the R&D and other value-added product, but operational activity is done by the this particular institute. And another success story as far as the space technology is concerned, that in the year 2016, drought manual came. And in that particular drought manual, for the first time, space-based informations were basically taken as an indicator of drought. This is an basically effort starting from 1988 onwards. In 2016, they could able to recognize, yes, space-based information also plays a very critical role, and we can take it for the protocol, development of the protocol for the drought assessment. I'll discuss further about all these inclusions and all. So what, as far as the drought protocol, what they recently, what they have considered is that the key variables considered as the meteorological data, that is of course mainly rainfall and temperature. If it is available wind speed and relative humidity, it is subject to availability they use, but generally they use this rainfall. And also, they also recommended weather forecast, particularly short and medium term weather forecasting, that is coming from NCM or WF. Importantly, they have also considered soil moisture as one of the key parameters. But again, it is subject to availability. In many of the cases, this soil moisture over a particular, over India, over a spatial scale, sometimes has his own issues and problems. Importantly, shown area, crop health or crop stress. This shown area can also basically coming from the Patwari or the Gram Panchayat level assessment, and then basically gathered over block or districts, and how it is basically varying from at the beginning of the season. Then comes the satellite-based vegetation index. So that is a new inclusions. And of course, stream flow, discharge, groundwater level, reservoir lake, these were there initially also. Importantly, the key variables which are basically highlighted as red, these can also be to some extent retrieved from the satellite data also. So it is not all the in situ observations or manual observations. These, to some extent, satellite data can also cater to all these variables. So right now, India has a plethora of different Earth observation satellites, land and water monitoring, of course, high resolution like Cartosat or RESAT or Cartosat series satellites. We have the Ocean series satellite, OceanSat 1, Sarolautica, and all these things, and weather satellite like Kalpana, INSAT 3D, Megatropic, and so on and so forth. Importantly, it is very, very required before beginning of any kind of analysis which data we should use. So we have a very low coarse resolution data, but good coverage all over India every day, or regional data with moderate resolution, very high resolution data, but coverage is very small. So in this drought case, we don't require very high resolution data because you cannot handle the data because we have to analyze throughout the nation. And that is the objective of drought assessment. So generally we harp upon either coarse or moderate resolution data which has got national or regional coverage. And then we use this data for repeated observations and come out with some kind of an idea whether it is having a drought or not. Importantly, it is if you see this is a NOAA VHRR. This is the kind of a coverage. This is for Terra Modis. This is a regional kind of a coverage. For AWIPS, you have the coverage of a particular group of districts, and for advanced WIPS, further high resolution, we have again further low coverage. So high spatial resolution. Then like like 8 and 9 and resource sat, spot series sets, these are also coming into the picture and giving a very good results for drought monitoring. So as far as the meteorological drought is concerned, basically we basically depend on the rainfall deviations. So we can directly take the rainfall independently. We can also take the rainfall at meteorological subdivision wise. We can calculate standardized precipitation index, which is much superior than the rainfall because it is normalized for that particular climatic conditions and have all these categories. Other than that, also we can derive some of the water balance based indices like Palmer drought severity index, moisture adequacy index, ADT index. These are also having this is a kind of a classification where it is wet and where it is drought. So ultimately it is the rainfall which is giving you all this kind of a derived indices, and any indices can be used based on the applicability of a particular region. So, and we have a weather observation network of IMD. We have more than 1400 automatic rain gauge, more than 675, or this is a bit old data, number may be higher, automatic weather stations. We have a Doppler radar, we have a surface observations, and agrometric